A warm welcome to the program today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. The UN says more than 900 civilians have been killed since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine on February 24. Among them, at least 112 children and counting. That figure is definitely going to go higher if the Ukrainian government continues to report Russian missiles targeting civilian areas, despite Russia's claims that its airstrikes have only been hitting military infrastructure. On Sunday, authorities in the Ukrainian city of Mariupol said Russian missiles hit an art school where about 400 people were sheltering. They were mainly women, children, and the elderly. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the terror in Mariupol will be remembered for centuries. Russia, on the other hand, reported on Sunday that forces had hit a Ukrainian Special Forces center early in the morning, killing more than 100 local troops and foreign mercenaries. According to Russian media, a Ukrainian Special Forces training center near the town of Ovruch in the northern Zhytomyr region, which hosted mercenaries, was targeted by high-precision air-launched missiles. It goes on to say the airstrike eliminated more than 100 Ukrainian Special Operations troops and foreign soldiers of fortune. Last week, Russia claimed it destroyed another mercenary base at the Yavoriv range in the western Lviv region, saying that up to 180 foreign fighters were killed there. Ukraine claims the front lines between their forces and the Russian forces are practically frozen, as Russia does not have enough combat strength to advance further. We'll revisit this in a minute, but let's check in other discussions in diplomatic circles. And when we return, we'll talk about Russia's introduction of hypersonic missiles from Crimean airspace, hitting Ukraine's military infrastructure, the rising death toll, and what could stop President Vladimir Putin. Chair of Human Rights Council's Commission for Human Rights in South Sudan says that while international attention is focused on war in Europe and the resultant tragedy, it is critical not to forget the conflict in South Sudan, where crucial provisions of a peace agreement have not been implemented and planned elections could plunge the nation into violence. This was contained in a report that noted that among the human rights violations reported by the Commission were incidents of sexual and gender-based violence, including rape of women and girls by armed men. Stating parties to the ongoing conflict continue to use sexual violence as a weapon of terror and political repression and as a tactic to advance their strategic objectives, including to displace the civilian population in order to control contested territory. Ukrainians and Israelis on Sunday gathered in Tel Aviv to protest against the Russian invasion of Ukraine and to support Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky while he addressed the Knesset. During his speech, Zelensky said that Israel would have to live with the choice it makes on whether to help protect Ukraine against the Russian invasion. Drawing comparison between the Russian offensive and the final solution, that is, the plan by Nazi Germany to exterminate Jews, Zelensky questioned Israel's reluctance to sell the Iron Dome defense system to Ukraine. Finally, German and South Korean officials have held talks in Qatar, underlining efforts by major energy importers to find alternatives to Russian supplies amid disruptions to oil and gas markets caused by the Ukraine war. Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani met South Korean Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum and German Economy Minister Robert Habeck for talks on bilateral cooperation focusing on energy sector. A German official says Germany and Qatar have reached a long-term energy partnership as Europe's biggest economy to seek to become less dependent on Russian energy sources. Russia is the largest supplier of gas to Germany, and Habeck has launched several initiatives to lessen Germany's energy dependence on Russia since it invaded its neighbor, Ukraine. Welcome back. You're joining me now to discuss strategy on both sides, Ukraine and Russia, and what could stop Vladimir Putin and his invasion or military operation in Ukraine is U.S. veteran Major Adebayo. Thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you. It's good to have me back.
Yes, so welcome back to the motherland.
Yes, indeed.
Speaking to you in the U.S. Yeah. But I wanted to pick your brains on just a few things this evening. One of them is the hypersonic missiles that Russia has introduced into this war. It's boasted that it's been firing that from the Crimean airspace. How different is it from all the other weapons that are being used in this war?
It actually is a difference. It's a difference maker, and also changes the dynamics of how this war is being fought. And this is pretty much not new tactics. Anytime there is a conflict, especially in a proxy war that has been fought in another man's land, this is some of the tactics being used, and mostly for the enemy, whoever the enemy is on this side, or the friendly forces as well. So this is where to see the impact of such weapons, and also the folks on the other side to be able to evaluate the impact of it. And from what I'm hearing, it's living up to this expectation, at least to a large extent. But it really changes the dynamics of this thing, because I'm also hearing that it has the capability of, at this point, say that Russia has the capability of firing missiles that have nuclear warheads on it as well. So, I think they are being aggressive in a sense to show that they can, they're flexing their muscle, that they actually have air superiority as well. But the outcome of this has yet been unclear, how this is going to be countered. But it's quite disturbing. It's quite disturbing if this is actually, because it shows a different level of warfare and how they're trying to fight. If this thing is quite prolonged and protracted.
So when you say hypersonic, it pertains to sound, of course. So
yes.
That means that the distance, it moves faster than sound. That's
yes.
what it means.
Yes.
Okay, so give us an idea, a range, of where it could hit.
So oftentimes when you use such stuff, you use for discrete, very highly targeted. Oftentimes when you use such missiles, you use with GPSs, so you can actually destroy something without destroying the whole building. So oftentimes they probably want to use it to reduce collateral damage as well. But the impact of it, which I've yet to see the collateral damage, or those kind of investigation that is being done after, to see the how the disposition of those matters become. But from what I've read and what I know of it, is quite deadly. So normally they want to use it to kind of very succinct, like surgical, quite surgical in nature, because it's very laser guided with GPS on it. So when you look at some of these things, you're like, wow, this is really getting very quite interesting. And I hope, honestly, I sincerely hope, because I know hope is not a course of action, I sincerely hope that diplomatic discussion actually prevail, because if this thing continues, I don't think a Ukrainian military has those kind of capability to, when they start using those kind of hypersonic missile, I don't think they have the capability to kind of warn them off. So I don't know if those things will kind of invite the West to join in the fight. I don't think so. But I think the West has been very clear going forward that they can only support the military weapons and aid, but not to put boots on ground. But that's yet to be seen. I know some have done logistically. They've produced troops logistically. I don't know the impact of those as well. At least in the main media, we've not seen the impact of it. But for the most part, I sincerely hope cooler heads prevail.
Yeah, and speaking of main media, we'll talk about them in a minute. But this whole, what you've explained means it debunks, the reports that Russia is firing misguided missiles into Ukraine. And then it also, the Russian military defense said, boasted about it. They said they had fired hypersonic missiles on Saturday and on Sunday. So that presupposes that Russia does know what it's doing. And that missile actually hit, on Sunday, hit a school, an art school in Mariupol. Mariupol had also suffered an attack just a few days before, and, still trying to count the casualties, as well on Sunday.
It would be quite disingenuous for anyone to believe that Russians don't know exactly what they're doing. They are quite, apart from the United States and China, they are quite very astute in their military warfare. And they know exactly what they're doing, especially when it comes to military hardware. So saying that firing those missiles without, unguided or whatever the names you want to use it, is quite disingenuous. Misguided. It's quite, I know exactly, I mean, you can call it, and I know people say, we're pounding to the narrative of the West, but you cannot say that those kind of weapons, especially in this age, even years ago when we fought in Afghanistan, we were able to succinctly actually hit a target to the 10 meters of it. So saying that the technology has really advanced, saying that is misguided, whatever they want to call it, I don't believe it. I don't buy it either. So I believe they know exactly what they are doing and how those areas were targeted.
So there's lots of propaganda in this war, both sides, or rather before that, let's talk about the kind of weapons that the Ukrainians are using. If the Russians are using hypersonic missiles, what is the most powerful tool on the side of the Ukrainians?
There's a lot. From what I've been reading in the last few days, a lot of air defense artillery can be used. I think what they want to do this time around is to kind of, because things are coming from different. If you look at incursion across on the eastern side, they want to kind of prevent as much as possible. But the way this thing works is because so much of this, some of this, I don't know the exact or the type of technology upgrade they have on the air defense missile they're going to be giving them. It works sometimes, and oftentimes it doesn't. And and I've been in situations whereby the missile or the rockets have hit before the whole thing sound off, and at that particular point in time, of what use is it? So they can only be a very defensive position because of the large civilian population. And from what I read today, almost 7 million people have been displaced. That's about quarter of the population of the country in itself. So I think it's very dicey for Ukraine, because the moment you keep firing back, you're provoking them to return fire as well. And you, on the other hand, they don't have a civilian to protect. You have a civilian to protect. So I think it's more idealistic for them to kind of enter a defensive posture rather than being offensive. In a defensive posture, you can try to protect as much as possible, do a lot of calculation, triangulation to see where those things are coming from, for them to see if they can do direct exactly to where those fires are coming from, and kind of camouflage. But I don't believe that they should go offensive-wise, because when you do that, you're just increasing the provocation. And then you have more at loss, because you have to protect the civilian population. They don't. So, and that's where the problem lies.
So do you believe that, because there are reports that the Russian forces have stalled or have been stalled because of, the Ukrainian air defense, the Ukrainian resistance against, the Russian military, which is the reason why they still haven't taken over Kyiv. They have taken a few cities, but, they still haven't taken over Kyiv. Do you believe that the weapons that Ukraine has is enough, and how long do you think that can hold?
I think it's a deterrent. I think it does a bit of work. And at the same time, can Russia pretty much eliminate the whole thing and get it done? Yes, they can. But then it becomes an issue, because now you do that, the whole world sees for who you are. And then there's no walking back those kind of steps. You've really gone above, you've crossed over the wall. The reason, from my point of view, and what I've discussed with people that are quite intimate with this kind of information on ground, there's several reasons. There's, military-wise, logistics is quite hampered at this time of the year, when you're kind of fighting a tank war, trying to move across. It's a different ball game. Fuel, sustainment of those fuel tanks that goes over. It's a logistical nightmare. Whoever is tasked to supply or to resupply the Russian military has to be extremely smart and capable, because that part of the world where you're actually moving a track vehicle, track and sand don't like each other, and that part of the world in winter is very muddy and really gets stuck. And when you have to move the tank out of the way, clean the track, put it on. There's a wrecker, and tank uses less than a gallon a mile.
Yeah,
so,
and there's a fuel scarcity already.
Exactly, and then so for each tank you have to produce a tanker of fuel to refuel it, and then those people have to go back and get refueled for every movement they made. It's a logistical nightmare to actually move those things. So that on one hand, and then the morale, from what I'm hearing, the morale of the Russian, because they were, of course, from what you hear, depending on the narrative you're listening to, some saying that these things they don't even understand why they are fighting. And also we're beginning to see that the Russian military is not what it's been cracked up to be as well. So all these things are coming to fore, and people are like, wow, this is very interesting. But again, if you listen to the Russian narrative as well, the soldiers are doing well.
You've had a few tours, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Iraq as well. So tell us from your experience, how this war could end.
I believe that we have to figure out a way to let Russia bow out in honor. Russia is the way they are turning, they're flexing. The whole world is holding them in contempt. And now they have to figure out a way to make a win-win for them. Ukraine has to concede at some point, but it has to be a way that Russia comes out in a honorable way, because right now it's not looking good for them. I think everyone is already there because economic-wise, even if this whole world ends, how are they going to, because right now, German Chancellor is asking for them to alienate them, no trade ban from Europe and all this, and that could be very detrimental to the people that lives in Russia. So they have to figure out a pathway for them to bow out honorably. And I think that's the only way this thing can soften up.
Major Adeleke, a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Amarachi.
Now to the concluding part of my exclusive interview with the UK's Minister for Africa, Vicky Ford. Last week we left off with her talking about the upcoming general elections in Nigeria in 2023. Yeah, and for every general election in Nigeria, governments such as the UK, the US, the EU, they all have press releases, and there is a warning to those who violate who perpetrate electoral violence, and politicians who perpetrate electoral violence, saying that they will be banned, from the UK, will have their visas revoked or will not be allowed into the country for a number of years. Has this ever happened?
Well, we do refuse to give visas to people if they have broken certain rules. Okay, and we do that. And if you violate elections, will be one of the reasons why that could happen. So, for example, if you have somebody who has incited people to violence in an election, that could be one of the reasons why we say, no, we're not going to give you a visa. In order to make sure that those sanctions are effective, we never talk about who we've done that to. Okay, we don't disclose the names. But we will, we will withhold visas. We do withhold visas for a number of different reasons, and one of them would be violating election law or inciting violence at election time. Yeah.
You have withheld visas of politicians?
I can't disclose names, but it is something that we do.
Okay. Well, in Chatham House last December, there was a speech you gave. You talked about the UK wanting the UK wanting to be Africa's investor of choice. How do you intend to make the UK that, for Africa? We've heard this before. I mean, a few years back, former Prime Minister David Cameron was here. He made that, all-important speech at the Lagos Business School, saying that Africa was a new bride, and we have seen change in relations, over time. But what does this mean, being an investor?
So first of all, there already is quite a lot of trade between Africa and the UK. It's over £3 billion worth of trade, pre-COVID numbers, that's happening. But we'd like to see a lot more. It was interesting. I spoke to a lot of different tech companies last night, and they were saying, we would love to see more investment coming from the UK. It's the same time zone. We speak English. It's, often we've got family there. We'd love to see more investment. So, and yet at the same point for the tech sector, often a lot of their investment will come out of Silicon Valley. So we were talking about how we can unlock more of that. I've been announcing a few more investments when I've been down here. So we have an organisation. Historically, it was called CDC. It's now called British International Investments. We've relaunched it, retooled it. We've put, for example, a big investment through British International Investment into First Bank, a total of £74 million, $100 million that's going to go into First Bank, that they're going to be able to use that money to lend into helping small businesses, especially women-led businesses, to get off the ground. That investment I announced yesterday. We also announced investment into an organisation called Infocredit. Infocredit is enabling it enables an aggregation of pension funds, investment fund money to go into building green energy projects, such as off-grid solar projects. And it's that funding that UK is putting in is enabling other, especially Nigerian pension funds and investment funds to come in to do that sort of project. So we have this organisation that's doing this investment, that's publicly funded. We also see that organisation helping to bring in other private sector investments. So again, I was with a company this morning where it's the Bush International Investment Organisation has helped encourage others to come in to a company that is doing some really smart warehousing support for really small micro businesses so that they can order each day what they need in their shops really efficiently using technology, helping again small women-led businesses to be more efficient, to be able to grow and boom. And that again, that's brought in over $30 million worth of money through the support that the UK gave and the advice in setting it up. So all sorts of different ways that we are helping them.
Yeah, and when you speak about energy, you're also working with the Lagos Waterways Authority.
This is big. So this is really exciting. So again, what the UK has been doing here is giving the advice and consultancy work to help prove the business plan here, to stand back from this project about how do you unlock the waterways as a transport route so that people can travel and feel safe and comfortable travelling on the water rather than getting stuck in that traffic jam that's just going on just outside that window. So we've led the work through working with other stakeholders to see what's needed, to look at what infrastructure is needed, to look at what regulatory environment is needed, to be in a position now that the local authorities will be able to give the licenses, so they will have an expression of interest, bids for people who might want to run these ferries, and then to issue the licenses so that people will be able to come in and run reliable water-based transport to enable people to travel so much more efficiently around here. And again, it's been the UK's that's given that that backbone of business support to be able to get then other people coming in to bid for the contracts and enabling the investment to come in.
I'm sure that they appreciate it as well as all the other businesses that you're supporting. But there is one area that Nigerians have been complaining about, and I'm sure you've heard it. It's the IELTS examinations, because many Nigerians want to study in UK universities, and this is a requirement, right? So Nigerians say the fees are exorbitant, and they use them once. I think it's only valid for a year or so, and if they miss that, that's it. And then the complaint also is that Nigeria is an English-speaking country, so why do they need to write the IELTS? But I think the UK government has said that there's certain criteria Nigeria needs to fulfill. Do you mind?
So it's really important if somebody's coming to the UK to work or to study, they need to make sure that they have got the English that they are going to need to use in order to work or study and take part in society. So we ask Nigerians, as well as many, many other countries, to do the English language test. The tests set by sort of common standards. We in the government don't set the costs of the tests. The cost of the test is set by the organisation that runs it. The rule that we have is that they shouldn't be able to charge more for this test than they do for other similar English tests. Okay, there is an exemption for people if they have passed already a BA degree, a bachelor's degree, and that degree has been taught in English and on a course that has been accredited, then they are exempt from doing that English language course. But otherwise, we expect that to be done because it makes sure that you can prove that when you come to the UK, you will have the language skills in order to do that.
But you spoke about criteria. UK government says there's certain criteria Nigeria has not met.
So if anybody wants to look at the way the tests run, they should go on the UK government website, which is called gov.uk, and they can look on that and see the different criteria that they have. As I said, that if you've done the BA degree in an accredited test, you don't need to do the English language test.
So finally, you spent less than 5 days in Nigeria. If you had a chance to taste the food, pepper soup, jollof rice, or moi moi.
What was the delicious fish that we had? Hot pepper soup with catfish. absolutely delicious. Really, really. I understand it was slightly less spicy than normal, so I'm sorry about that, but it was absolutely delicious.
This is where we end the program this week. You can watch this episode and previous ones on our website, channelstv.com. Go to Programs, click on Diplomatic Channel, or go to Channels Web on YouTube, click on the playlist, and go to Diplomatic Channel. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.